Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Straight Line podcast. My name is Jeremy Maartens, and today the topics of discussion are SA Omnium track champs that happened in Belleville this weekend, my take, my opinion on endurance riders and what the international trend seems to be, and then Eastside CRITS coming this Sunday. Righto, first up, SA Omnium track champs. Last week, the last podcast, I spoke about 3 age groups that I identified as interesting. Today I want to just give a brief overview of some of the master categories. Those categories I highlighted yesterday. Right, so first up, master men, the older master men, the distinguished gentlemen. Mario Nell seemed to be the man that was on fire there. He won pretty much most events in his category. Second place was Bruce Fullion, Benoni boy. Then the next group, Tians was dominated by Tians van der Bank, a proven track rider over the last 2 decades. Tians, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking close on 20 years. You've been involved in the track at a high level. Yeah, you proved this weekend that you seem to be the man to beat in South Africa in this age group. Got to have a mention to Ryan Lee. When I was growing up, Ryan and I, we raced against each other. We were a lot younger. Then we went our own ways. But I bumped into Ryan a couple of years ago at Hector Norris. He's been spending a lot of time on the track. He's getting better and better at it. And he also rounded up with a great podium position at the Omnium Champs. Well done. Right, next group for me that I found very interesting, the under 17 boys. Now last week I said that Morgan Jones was going to win, I thought pretty convincingly, but Daniel Leroux, you proved me wrong, young man. But for the under 17 boys the under 17 boys Omnium came down to the final points race, and then in the end, those 2 youngsters were separated by 1 point. Now, if you understand Omnium racing, to lose a race or to win a race by 1 point, man, that's close. Well done to both the youngsters. That's very good show. And it's great to see such healthy competition. The boys are pushing each other all the way. And I look forward to what's going to happen in the next coming years. Notable mention, Zane Salzwiedel ran 3rd place in South African track cycling. The Salzwiedel name doesn't need any introduction. Steven Salzwiedel, he is very high involved in the track side, and his uncle Jared Salzwiedel is also heavily involved on the coaching side of South African track cycling. So yeah, that's a nice one for the Salzwiedel family. Next up, the junior men. A little bit surprised by 1 or 2 riders in this category, but not surprised by a couple other guys. Jose Kleinsmith pretty much manhandled this race. He won it relatively simply, winning 3 out of the 4 events. The only event that he didn't win was won by Reese Burrell, the tempo points race. Which coincidentally, he being Reese, ran 2nd overall in the Omnium. Carlo Engelbrecht was 3rd overall. I said last week, Carlo's a good rider. I wasn't at the track this weekend, but I was getting feedback from riders that were down there, and I was watching the live feeds on the Western Province track Facebook page, which was pretty cool. I think, it's lucky that we're making our sport a little bit more accessible. Gone are the days of big sporting houses coming down to film races and give reports on that. I think those days are gone. It's up to us to make things happen, to make the cycling community aware of what is really going on in the sport. Next up, the elite ladies. That was dominated by Sonara Grove. She won all 4 of the events. 2nd place was Ainsley de Beer, and 3rd place was Anya Duplessis. Anya Duplessis is a junior rider, but yeah, Sonara pretty much, she bossed it down there. Now, I want to get a little bit more information, find out a little bit more about Sonara. So, you have to go through the grapevine that she has spent quite a bit of time this year in Europe, in particular Holland and Belgium. So I reached out to her this morning and we had a bit of a chat. Yeah, she rode for the Continental Tonelli team. After African track champs this year in Egypt, she came back home and then went across to Holland, to Belgium. Spent quite a bit of time racing on the road. we had a bit of a chuckle earlier, that when you go there, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's not like you land at the airport, your team picks you up in the big team bus and you get taken to the hotel or the place where you're staying and they do everything for you and it's fantastic. Yeah, if you are in the big teams in the world and you ride up in the top echelons of world cycling, okay, that type of stuff can happen. But for a large percentage of the rest of the world, that doesn't happen. So, it's hard on you to get to races, to get back from races. You've got visa issues you need to sort out. Interesting thing that Sonara said was that in her team, there's a lot of international riders, meaning non-Belgium riders. But there, if you're in Europe, you have the luxury that if you need to go home just for a weekend, a long weekend, you quickly hop on a train or jump on an airplane, boof, there you go, you're away from home. But if you come from South Africa and you're there, if you're there, you are there. But with that being said, she loved the racing. She was saying that in a small community race, like a local race, the ladies bunch, minimum 30 up to 60 riders. When you're doing UCI categorized races, you are looking at 120 plus. She was saying that Sonara's got a decent engine and hopefully she's going to go back next year and she'll progress through the ranks. And I think she has the tools in her toolbox to actually do very well. But she was saying that the bunch handling skills, the bike riding skills, knowing how to handle yourself in the bunch, it's very, very different than what it is here. Now, I have been preaching this for years, decades, and I'm going to keep on preaching this. It's a very big thing for any South African rider to go overseas to Europe and have to adjust to the different style of racing, the tempo of racing, the amount of riders that are in the group. It's a big adjustment, and I hope that the younger riders that are watching this, that you do take note that it's when you go race there in the big leagues, it's not like it's racing over here. South African racing, the bunches are small and it's easy to maneuver around. A lot of the time the racing is negative. It becomes a bit more of a tactical race as a pure outside engine race. But yeah, it was cool that she went there this year. She saw a lot of things. She came back 4 SA Omnium champs. She wanted to win and she did that. And fun fact, everyone seems to think South Africa is a center of the world for crime and for all cuck things to have to happen, which a lot of bad things do happen here. But a week before she was supposed to come to South Africa, her bike got stolen in France. So yeah, bicycles also get stolen in France. I'm sure you guys, if you follow cycling, you would have heard over the years, pro tour teams, their buses get broken into, their trucks get broken into during big stages, and the guys empty out the bikes. I mean, it's an opportunity, get opportunist, things like that will happen. But yeah, so she got hold of Marushka Mattia down in Cape Town, and Marushka lent her bike, so at least Sonara could ride. So chapeau to you, Marushka. Nice one. Next up, the elite men. If I had a hat, I would be half eating it. David Maria, I said last week, I was questioning your ability to fight or race against these 20-year-olds. You proved me wrong. You went out and pretty much dominated the Omnium race. You've won, I speak on a correction, 3 out of the last 4. So your proven track record spoke for itself. One of the riders that I think stood out for me that was close to, or was the closest to you, was Brad Gaveras. Brad Gaveras does come from a strong track background over the years. It seemed to me he's taken a bit of time off. But I spoke to I was with Steven Salzwedel at African Track Champs earlier this year, and Steven said that Brad's back on course. He wants to perform well, and he's got a couple of his own goals and aspirations that he wants to achieve. He first came onto my radar for a long time at the Eastern Cape Grand Prix. He won a fair few events there, and he carried that form or that condition, that drive, desire over to SA Omnium Track Champs, and came a credible second. And then behind him was Wynand Hofmeyer, Cape Town boy. Yeah, third place, not a bad result. Yeah, for the bits that I saw of the elite race, yeah, just you get the feeling that it's not, the race lacked the intensity and drive that it has had in the last couple of years. You know, the likes of Gert Forshire, Nolan Hoffman, Dalvin Maria is obviously there, Stephen van Eerden, Josh van Wyk, you know, the guys like that, they typically light up the race and really take the racing on. And I just get the feeling that if those guys, you know, fast forward to this weekend, if those guys were in the race, I think the result would have been a bit different, and the racing style would have been different. Yeah, just now touching on style and this type of races. Of the three winners in the last two categories, the elite men, the elite ladies, the junior and the junior men, and also I'm going to touch on the under 17 boys. Daniel Leroux, as far as I know, he's from the Eastern Cape and there's no tracks there, so he would do a lot of his work on the road, on the trainer, building his engine. Jose Kleinsmith spent a lot of time in Europe this year, in Holland racing. The week before SA Omnium Track Champs, he was riding the three-day Blue Diamond stage race in and around Pretoria. Same thing for David Maria. He was also racing for his team DMS at the three-day stage race in and around Pretoria. Sonara Grove, she fresh off a stint in Holland racing on the road. I was watching GCN yesterday morning, and they had highlights of the Tour de Langkawi, and the winner of stage 3, George Jackson, a New Zealand rider, placed 7th at World Elite Scratch Race Championships a month to 5 weeks ago. 7th in the scratch race, is now winning a stage in an international stage race. Now, I follow Josh van Wyk quite a bit, watching his progress and tracking his progress, and he was racing Class 1 and Class 2 events in Europe this year with his intention of building up to World Champs. Now, there were a lot of those events where him and George Jackson were going head to head. Josh would win one, George would win one. So they're both following a very similar trajectory. I know Josh has spent the last 2 seasons in Belgium doing the Cadmus courses there and racing on the road, building his engine with his ultimate goal here, or his end goal here, is to stand on the podium at World Champs for the scratch race. Now, what is he doing? He's building his engine on the road. George Jackson, 7th at World Scratch Champs. He's now winning stages in the Tour de Langkawi. Sonara Groves. That says a hell of a lot about endurance riders and what the current crop are doing. So for the Morgan Joneses of the world, the Daniels of the world, the junior boys and girls, build your engine. If you want to perform on the international league, on the endurance side, you need to have an engine. How do you do that? Get on the road, do stage races, build your engine. Okay. Next up on the topic of discussion today, East Side CRITS. We have another event this coming weekend, Sunday 1st of October at Lordsview Industrial Park. As per usual, we're going to run 4 categories. Your C category, you will have your distinguished veteran riders, and then in that you will have your youngsters, your 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old riders, boys and girls. They will race within the same time slot as the C category, but they will ride a reduced distance race, but they will have their own Group 2 racing. Next up is going to be your B category. That's for your faster veteran riders, the under 17 boys, some junior riders, and even some elite and under 23 riders. They're not quite there in the A category race yet. Here's a spot for you to race. Ladies category. You're going to have the racing ladies. They're going to race a 8-lap points race. Then behind them, you're going to have a separate group with your master ladies and your teenage girls. This group is going to race a 6-lap scratch race. So they're going to race in the same time slot as the whole ladies group, but they will race their own separate race. Next up, A category. That's your elite under 23 riders, your juniors, your top level under 17 riders. They will race a 12-lap points race, sprint every 2 laps, same as what we have done earlier in the year. So yeah, looking forward to that. Looking to see everybody down at the race course. The numbers are growing nicely. The gees is growing nicely. People are coming out to watch the bike race. This is what I've said this over and over and over. I'm going to keep on saying it. My strive here is to build the culture of bike racing. Bring your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend down to the race. Bring your family. Come see your significant other actually racing, going around and around in circles with their hair on fire, bleeding through the eyes, the speed so high. Come see what they are doing. And then while we're talking about speed and going around the track so fast, next Sunday, the 8th of October, is Time Trial Day around Lordsview Industrial Park. Team time trials, we'll be running those. And then I posed a question yesterday about individual time trials. There's been quite a positive response to that. So yeah, I will be also running individual time trials. The details for that will follow the next day or two. But looking forward to see everyone down at the track this coming Sunday. Until then, cheers, bye.